This video is sponsored by Squarespace. If you need a domain, a website or an online store, make it with Squarespace. As I make this video, we're just coming out of the COVID-19 pandemic, and this has meant that my photographic work has pretty much ground to a halt over the past year. No one was getting married, people were working from home so no one was commissioning staff portraits, and everywhere was shut with all non-essential travel banned, meaning that I wasn't even going out to shoot street portraits or any other kind of recreational photography, unless you count photos of trees. Endless photos of trees. Anyway, the one thing I could do in this time was work on creating some new film emulation presets for Lightroom, but without a fresh bank of new images to test these on, I had to resort to digging out my old hard drives and going through raw files from old wedding catalogues from weddings I had shot over the past decade. And as I went through the tens of thousands of photos for wedding after wedding, I noticed something interesting. The photographs that stood out as the ones I liked weren't the ones I initially picked to showcase back when I was editing the wedding. I've questioned why this is. Initially, I thought it might be because my skill level had changed, or maybe my photographic tastes had developed. But I don't think that's it. I think this is down to a photographic phenomenon that was influencing my opinions, known as the punctum. But to understand this, first we need to understand a bit about Roland Barthes' seminal book on photography, Camera Lucida. Camera Lucida is a book of philosophical musings on photography. It was originally published in 1980, and it's a complex and thought-provoking piece of text. It reads almost like a stream of consciousness, and it contains so many interesting points that I couldn't possibly hope to cover them all in a single video. So I'll concentrate instead on explaining one aspect that forms a large part of Barthes' hypothesis. Roland Barthes believes that our traditional way of categorising and conceptualising photos is an inadequate marker of what the photo truly is to us. We label photos as amateur, professional, landscapes, portraits, objects, nudes, realistic, abstract, etc. But by doing this, we're simply imposing a rhetoric of external concepts onto the image. It does not convey what the image's essence truly is. So deciding that this existing paradigm for understanding photography is too reductionist, Barthes embarks upon a journey of discovery to try to find out what the essence of photography is, and this is the main focus of the book. He concludes that photos can have what he refers to as a studium, and this is the coded cultural, linguistic and political meaning of a photograph. It's generally something intended by the photographer and it's subjectively understood by the audience. The studium is the shared understanding of what a photo is about. However, Barthes finds a problem with the studium in that in order for an audience to understand what the meaning of a photo is, they already have to be familiar with the topic and believe in the message. For example, a photograph that highlights the wealth gap in contemporary America requires the viewer to already know about the wealth gap in contemporary America in order to recognise its representation within the image. Therefore, a photograph with just a studium does not trigger a deep emotional connection for us. The most we can do is like or admire the image, but it won't affect us in any kind of profound way. So why then do some images hit us on such a deeply emotional level? Barthes theorises that those photographs that resonate with us and profoundly affect us contain a duality. They contain a studium, but they also contain what he refers to as a punctum. And a punctum is an incidental but poignant detail in the photograph that fires out of the image and pierces a viewer. It constitutes a personal meaning that is unrelated to any cultural code. It's the thing that emotionally affects the spectator and ensures that the image stays with them. Barthes argues that the punctum will puncture the studium. It elevates our relationship to the image beyond simply liking or disliking it and replaces it with an emotional connection. The punctum takes the power because while the studium consists of signs and signifiers, the punctum becomes the thing itself, the visceral reaction we experience, the feelings, the relived trauma. A studium is always one step away because it's something that represents something else, whereas the punctum takes what lives inside us unconsciously and brings it to the surface. It's something that we actually feel and actually experience. Now, the punctum is most likely not intentionally included by the photographer, yet it forms the most powerful connection between the viewer and the image. So I suppose in this sense, the photographer does not really have control over how the images they make are received by an audience. Throughout the book, Barthes gives several examples of puncta that he sees in various photographs. One such example is this image by William Klein. Barthes mentions that the punctum for him with this image is the boy's bad teeth, but for anyone who's ever had a gun held to their head, the punctum would probably be the toy gun. And for someone else it might be something as simple as the pattern on his shirt. For me personally, it's the way whoever this person is gripping the boy's hand, the way his little finger is awkwardly sticking out. It looks like it's uncomfortable for him, and it makes me feel anxious. The book's conclusion is left quite open, and there are some contradictions as to the nature of what exactly the punctum is. However, I find it difficult to read any other conclusion than that of the punctum being entirely subjective to the viewer, something we apply to the image as a result of our own personal feelings and experiences. With this in mind, I question how objective we can be about our own photography. Do our emotional connections and memories of the images we make stop ourselves from being able to see our images how others see them? I would argue that when being a wedding photographer and editing a wedding for a client, being emotionally in touch with the day is actually a helpful thing. This will ensure you get the feeling right when you edit and you pick the photos that have the most importance and the most emotional resonance for your client. When you know how special a moment is and you capture it in a way that embodies the feeling of it, it's easy to think, wow, I've made an amazing image there. But to a spectator who doesn't know the context, does that feeling still communicate? Should that shot take pride of place in your externally facing portfolio? I've given some thought to this, and the best solution for this problem I can come up with is to keep your old shots and sporadically revisit them to see if you feel differently about them. I find about a year is a good amount of time between giving a client their images and then picking the images to showcase for yourself. Most of my emotional attachment to the shoot has dispersed by that point. You can also get other photographers to look over your portfolio and tell you if they think you should take anything out. Ultimately, you must make the decision, but listen to what others say. It can also be a frustrating task to discard images that took a lot of skill and effort to get, but the harsh truth is that if you want a good portfolio that's going to get you new business, you need images that work on their own and don't need to be accompanied with an explanation. If you have any other ideas on how to make sure we don't let emotional attachments cloud our judgments, do let me know in the comments. Or maybe you disagree with what Barthes says altogether. Roland Barthes was a philosopher and literary theorist, he wasn't a photographer. Maybe his understanding of photography was naive or short-sighted. Maybe his view isn't relevant 41 years on. But I recommend reading Camera Lucida if you haven't. It's a fairly short book and it contains a lot of interesting thoughts on photography. And whether you agree with Barthes' take on photography or not, it's all food for thought. It's always good to question yourself. So a big thank you to everyone who buys my Lightroom presets or has supported me on Patreon, because you keep this channel going, basically. And also a big thank you to Squarespace for sponsoring this video. The Squarespace is an all-in-one website building and hosting platform. You can do it all through your browser, nothing to install. It's all extremely easy to use with simple drag and drop functionality. You have a big range of customizable templates that look really nice and they function well too. They automatically adapt for tablets and for mobiles, so they look great on whatever device they're being viewed on. They also provide comprehensive analytics and e-commerce tools, and you can update your site from wherever you are as long as you have an internet connection. I have 3 Squarespace sites myself, and I had these way before I took on a sponsorship with them. I took on a sponsorship with them because I really like their product. It takes all the hassle out of building and running a website, but without compromising on the quality. You can give them a try yourself with their completely free trial. You don't need to commit to anything or to cancel anything. You just go to squarespace.com and start building your site to see if you like it. And if you do, you can go to squarespace.com/Jamie Windsor to get 10% off your first purchase of a domain or a website. I'll see you next time.